we have some new news surrounding Microsoft Studios' rumored Transformers games, in which has taken an intriguing turn with the discovery of 2 classification listings on the Australian Classifications Board website. These listings provide fresh details that could potentially clarify the nature of these projects. With the recent entries under the title Transformers, it appears increasingly likely that these games may be connected to our beloved Transformers War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron titles, originally published by Hasbro and Activision, I'm sure many of you know. With that being said though, the first classification entry for the game is simply titled Transformers, and has been marked as original, with the production year of 2024. The content is rated PG, noting online interactivity, and also scary scenes. The second entry, also titled Transformers, is labelled as modified and includes additional descriptions such as mild violence, online interactivity, and users interact. The distinction between original and modified versions suggests that Microsoft could be working on updated or enhanced editions of the classic War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron games, potentially remastering or re-releasing them for modern audiences on modern consoles, right? So this could link into, say, the Game Pass, which would also make sense if we were to factor in the fact that this was not on Hasbro's initial leaked document we got of their upcoming projects. If this was a separate initiative based by Microsoft, this makes a whole lot more sense if they had to do internal testing to bring them up on their Game Pass. Because I'm sure, as many of you know, a lot of those games that have to go through that initial testing, it takes quite a while given the amount of consoles they have to do for. Now, with that being said, this theory gains traction when considering that both entries indicate online multiplayer capabilities, a staple feature of the original War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron games. The mention of original and modified could hint at remastered versions alongside a more modernized edition with updated content or gameplay mechanics. Right, because if you think original modified, maybe you're thinking, oh, that doesn't make sense for War and Fall of Cybertron. Actually, it does. As some of you might know, Fall of Cybertron was on next generation consoles at the time. Yet War for Cybertron wasn't, right? It was everything from Fall of Cybertron onwards, if I'm correct. So that would make sense why you'd have, say, modified, right, for Fall of Cybertron, because it would just be a relisting. Where original, technically this would be an original update to War for Cybertron, since it was never on those consoles, right? It never came to the newer consoles. So technically this could be a new original, right, game added to, say, the Game Pass. That's maybe how it makes sense. That's the way I'm looking at it in terms of things, so you can kind of follow my situation. It does kind of make sense, right? So maybe that's what's up with this modified original thing. So given that being said, this would align with Microsoft's recent acquisition of Activision Blizzard, the publisher of the original titles, as many of you know, because now with Activision under Microsoft's umbrella, it would make sense for the company to leverage these newly acquired assets and capitalize on the renewed interest of these iconic Transformers games. Right, this kind of goes for the entire broad catalog that Microsoft picked up with Activision. We know that was the initial purchase, right? It was to utilize the massive amount of game IP property Activision Blizzard has, or I guess Activision Blizzard had, right? Because now it's under Microsoft. So we know that that's what, because obviously we know Microsoft have been building out the whole Game Pass, the games as a service thing. That's what they've been doing for the past decade. So of course, that's what was going to happen when they got hold of Activision Blizzard, right? They didn't just pick it up for obviously they picked it up for the main heavy hitters like COD, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, like the entirety of the Battle.net stuff. But again, bringing these games back, especially since this has already been brought up before, as many of you know, the entire situation behind these games coming back has been going on for months now. So this makes a lot of sense. And again, labeled Transformers, we've seen interest before. It lines up with how they want to move in a bunch of properties into Game Pass, bring them up with the backwards compatibility. It just makes sense, right? And then from there, it's as simple. You put in War, you put in Fall, the 2 fan favorites, and then from there we could be seeing Devastation come back, Rise of the Darkspark, the 07 games, like the original Transformers movie games. We could be seeing the entire catalog come back retrospectively now due to this new deal and how they're going forth with this. Because otherwise, what is this for? We already, as I discussed in the last video, there's no way they could have just magically poof, new game within 4 months, announcement in 4 months. That doesn't make any sense. But these games being original, modified, again, War for Cybertron being the original, and then modified being a relist of Fall of Cybertron, that makes a whole lot more sense, especially given the fact that they're labeled as multiplayer. And then you see it just makes sense overall. I'm betting, to be honest, that this is the original Fall of Cybertron. I know, I'll say that, like, don't 100% it, but what else could it be realistically? Like, unless you've got any comments of your own, I personally think that's what it is, because it doesn't make any sense to bring anything back. Like, why would they be bringing back, say, I don't know, like, just Fall of Cybertron, say, Devastation or some weird, like, thing like that? It doesn't make any sense. And I know I've seen some people, like, saying, this is Galactic Trials and Reactivate. Huh? Reactivate isn't slated, if we're to believe the leaked internal document, till 2025. Right? Unless they're dropping a beta right at the end of the year. But again, this is under Microsoft. We know this has nothing, we know Reactivate has nothing to do with Microsoft. It's Hasbro and Splash Damage, question mark. And then Galactic Trials, again, that's Hasbro and what, Outright Games? Yeah, that's right, Outright Games. This has nothing to do with Microsoft, because otherwise, like, huh? Well, I really don't get that, to be honest. So, going off track anyway. So furthermore, the timing of these classifications is notable, right? Because the Australian Classifications Board often publishes ratings when games are nearing release or when a beta version is imminent. Oh my, like, so with that being said, obviously we've seen slated and we've seen like the 2024 mark date. Well, what if we get betas for it? Again, if this is War and Fall of Cybertron, why would we be getting beta of them? Why? It makes no sense, right? Makes no sense for a beta, though. Obviously, if this is different projects, I wanted to mention it because it does like come up, like it could be a beta for something else. But again, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe you want to throw Reactivate in there, but again, Microsoft Reactivate there's no prior knowledge to like anyone bringing this up before. And again, it lines up with War and Fall of Cybertron. I'm gonna stop rambling, but yeah, so with that being said, where was I? Right, so this means that the Transformers projects are in their final stages of development and or might be ready for release or public testing sooner than expected, right? If these games are indeed the revamped versions of War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, us the fans could expect to have the opportunity to experience these beloved titles once again with updated graphics, improved multiplayer functionality, and even possibly new content. Though at the very least we'd be looking at the original titles coming back in their, I guess, original forms. Kind of, remember, if War for Cybertron is getting updated, they might have to change certain things in regards to it coming to Game Pass and like modern consoles. But I guess in retrospective of PC, right, since I'll touch on it later, or I guess I'm about to with the keys, right, it's coming to Steam, boom, it just goes up. That's it. Like, there's no problem because, as I said, like I own the original games on Steam. I have Transformers War, Fall, Rise. Like, I have all of them on Steam and they work perfectly, bar like maybe you need a couple of mods to improve the general experience. So who knows, maybe they'll come back with some fixed tweaks and maybe Fall of Cybertron will, maybe they'll fix the FPS issue. Like, that's kind of a hope, but then again, if you know, like, the physics is kind of tied to that, it could just be, like, not a possibility. If they have fixed that, that's going to be wild. Like, that'll fix a lot of the, like, main key issues, sticking point people have with Fall of Cybertron. They just don't like the really low FPS, like the 30, the 60. I think even 60 kind of breaks the game's physics as well. It's not as bad as going 100 plus, but yeah. Anyway, with that being said, adding more weight to this theory is the recent update that the Steam CD keys for several older Activision Transformers games have been refreshed, although not directly related to the Microsoft listings, make that be assured. So this development suggests a broader strategy to renew interest in these classic games. By updating the Steam keys, it appears that Activision, now under Microsoft, might be preparing to reintroduce these older titles to newer audiences, possibly as a larger relaunch or remaster effort given the rest of the Transformers like games and IP in general, right? So with that being said, since obviously the Steam CD keys are unrelated, that kind of makes sense anyway because they're the Steam CD keys. They're not really under Microsoft per se. Obviously, there's some linking with the games, but if Hasbro wanted to do their thing or Microsoft wanted to do their thing, they don't really, like, there's, I mean, obviously Microsoft Windows and maybe with the Windows Store, maybe we'd have to see if they come back to that as well. But Steam CD keys are just on their own, right? It's as simple as just like reinstating like Steam CD keys in terms of how many. They could just make a bunch of new ones, or I'm not sure how exactly that works, but it's as simple as just boom, more keys, put it back on Steam, voila. It's not like they have to port it over for like the modern consoles if it comes to like War for Cybertron or testing the backwards compatibility with all of the games, right? So maybe that's how that's going to go. Either way, I thought it was worth mentioning anyway. So with that one fact though, Like, none of this was mentioned in Hasbro's internal documents, as I touched on, right? That document leak for the upcoming Transformers media, right, that suggests these projects might be handled separately from Hasbro's core content plans. I was already touched on this because, right, this means that Microsoft might be or is managing these games independently, which would kind of make sense given the fact that maybe Hasbro they asked Microsoft and Microsoft's like, okay, yeah, we could fast track these games to put them on Game Pass. We knew they were heavily interested with, or there was heavy interest, and there has been for like several months now. And of course, Hasbro was like, yeah, sure, if you can get them working, you do your own thing, you can put them back up, we'll sign the license agreement and off you go, right? Hasbro doesn't really have to be too involved. It's not like they're making a new game. It's not like they're going to be making any new DLC. I mean, that's possible, but at the bare minimum, we're just expecting the base games, right? I think let's not get our hopes up too insane here, right? So with that being said though, it could be like Microsoft is trying to make these games independently, right, to possibly align with, say, its broader gaming strategy. Again, we know Game Pass, again, I'm going to mention it, right? Or maybe it's just to surprise the market with an unexpected release, right? Maybe that's the thing, because obviously these games, I know to us, we know it, right? But like the broader audience, the broader, say, like Microsoft coverage audience, they aren't going to really know. This would kind of be a surprise, like bringing back these like old staples. That'd be like a nostalgia hit for like the broader, like normal fan base who don't really know anything. Like they're not in it like we are, you know what I mean? They're not following it day in, day out, right? Additionally, these games might not yet be fully integrated into Hasbro's official media strategy, awaiting a formal announcement. It could just be that. It could be that these listings are being created, everything's being done, but like it's not finalized yet. Not like everything has not been completed, like all out. That's why they're getting this stuff done now. Once it's all said and done, then Hasbro, boom, formal announcement. They'll be like, okay, everything's ready to go. All you have to do is release. We just need your word, Hasbro. And they'll be like, yep. And then boom, formal announcement. We get them. I mean, Hasbro could also be like keeping this on the DL for all we know. They could be just waiting, biding their time. They're having the movie promotions go out. They don't want to like interrupt that. And then boom, movie comes out. And then boom, they hit us with this nostalgia hype bait with all the new games coming out. That gets us attention, right? That way it's not interrupting with the movie too much. I know obviously the scenes are slightly different. One's gaming, one's movie, but you know how Hasbro is with like different marketing and their marketing like spiel, scene, whatever. It's a whole lot of gobbledygook. So with that being said though, with the classification entries for these Transformers games by Microsoft Studios, coupled with the recent updates to the old Transformers games CMCD keys, right, this strongly suggests a potential for the revival of War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron titles, right? Because as we eagerly await official confirmation, the pieces of the puzzle are now beginning to align, hinting at an exciting possibility of revisiting these classic titles in a new form. Or at least a better state than what we currently have to deal with, right? Like, I don't think anyone watching this wants to go out and buy a key for Transformers War for Cybertron or Fall of Cybertron for 400 odd pounds or something ridiculous. That's like flippers are trying to flip. No, nobody's paying that, bro. Nobody's paying. Like, especially now with like, I think I saw an update on Warehouse that the 4 of Cybertron keys have now ran out through Amazon. So now you're going to be forced to get it through CD key resellers. So this would be a perfect time to relaunch them, man. Like, nobody in the new generation is want to go like, oh, I want to play these old games, you know, I'm into Transformers, boom, slap with 400, 800 quid key resellers or whatever they're doing it these days. It's ridiculous, right? So whether through the remasters, re-releases, or entirely new iterations, right, it seems clear that the Transformers universe is set to make a significant return in the gaming world, right? At least at the end of 2024, if these dates are to be believed, right? And then moving forward to 2025, Reactivate again, if those are to be believed, right? It's going to be a massive slam dunk. That's all I'm saying, especially with if the movie does perform as well, bringing the brand relevancy hype all the way up. I mean, the games are only going to benefit from it, right? And then us, the fans, well, I guess we're just going to have to stay tuned. Again, subscribe to the channel, like the video and all that stuff. I'm going to be keeping you guys updated as it was. So if any updates are coming soon, you're going to be seeing them here, bros. So peace.